Welcome back to Movie Recap. Today I will show you a drama, mystery, thriller film from 2024, titled Sicken. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The film is based on a true incident, and right at the beginning, we get a scary piece of information. We learn that there is a very rare phenomenon called the Black Moon, a month when the moon disappears from the sky for a full 30 days. This unholy event occurs mostly in February and repeats every 19 years. The last time it happened was in 2018, and the next time it will happen is in 2037. But this is not just a coincidence, but a sign of some dark energy, a demonic force that has a direct connection to the Zulmit ritual. It is an ancient and cursed ritual that is performed during the Black Moon and awakens terrifying divine forces. The story begins with an old woman named Merill, who has come to meet a cursed sorcerer woman. But she doesn't seem like a normal person. Her eyes had a cold, deadly gleam, and her skin was so dark and dull, as if a shadow was slowly devouring her. Around her stood a number of strange disciples, their faces expressionless, as if possessed by some unseen disease. Merill had only one desire in her heart, to take revenge on her son and husband's killers, even if it cost her life. The sorcerer tells her about the Zulmit ritual, a dark ritual that requires the surrender of one's soul to a bloody entity to complete it, and the mere mention of which sends a chill down the spine. It was the most dangerous and cursed ritual in the world, so terrifying that even the very mention of it made sorcerers and ordinary people tremble. It was performed only during the month of the Black Moon, and on the darkest night of that month, the Night of Zulmit. Zulmit means pitch darkness, and on this night mercy and humanity do not exist. The sorcerer warned Merill that if she set out on this path, there would be no turning back. Once this cycle begins, it will not end without destruction. But for Merill, there was no question of retreating, there was only the fire of revenge in her eyes. The sorcerer told her that she would have to commit a crime for which she would have to bear the punishment alone, a sin that could break the last wall between man and devil. For the ritual, she would have to sacrifice an innocent, but not a normal death. She would have to bury a live child. Merill chose her target without hesitation, an innocent child named Mehmet. She takes him with her, and on the night of February 16, 2018, the Night of Darkness, the ritual begins. First, the child is infected with dim blood, a demonic process in which his body is indirectly possessed by a dark entity, marking him perfectly for sacrifice. As soon as this happens, the curse takes effect, the air gets heavy, the darkness seems denser, and then a mirror appears, a mirror that is just a part of the ritual and inside of which there is something that no one can see, and if anyone sees it, they will not survive. This sorcerer possessed a terrifying knowledge that was probably acquired from another world, the world of the jinns. All her curses and rituals were designed to evoke some dark entity. As we know, jinns usually live in the mirror world, a world that looks just like ours, but slightly upside down, like looking into an old, broken mirror. Merill's fire of revenge was now at its last stage. Her target, whom she had trapped in this dark game, kills his entire family and kills himself. Her revenge was complete, but she did not yet realize how heavy the price was. The sorcerer now gives Merill one last instruction. She must seal her sin completely, that is, bury the sacrificed child alive. She tells her that the child is now completely infected with the dim blood, and if he is not buried, there will be an unimaginable catastrophe. To prevent this, she is also given a special amulet, a cursed talisman made of the bones of 7 animals, which must be buried with the child. This was called the Seal of Zulmit, which proved that the ritual had been completed. Meanwhile, the story takes us back to Ran, the man we saw in Sicken 3. He was restless seeing this Night of Zulmit. He felt that something very wrong was going to happen this time. He started wondering who would be its next victim. Can this dark shadow be saved? And what do these forces of Zulmit want? As the night deepened, his fears also increased. Maybe something had woken up, which was not supposed to sleep. Time passes, and the story takes us to the night of March 21, 2018, exactly 5 days later. Now the focus shifts to Merill, who is now at the house of a woman named Arzu. Arzu's family had just moved in, and the strange and scary things that were about to happen were about to unfold in the next 4 or 5 days. Arzu wanted Merill to stay at their house and take care of the house because her mother-in-law, Lale, was seriously ill. Lale had been suffering from Alzheimer's for the past 2 years, a disease in which a person gradually loses consciousness, loses memory, and needs support for even basic needs. She couldn't eat properly, couldn't go to the washroom, and even simple tasks like bathing had become difficult. The atmosphere in the house was strangely heavy, as if there was something hidden there, watching everyone. Arzu's older daughter, Sarah, was not happy at all in this new environment. She had no friends here, no one listened to her, and she felt completely alone. On the other hand, her younger sister, Roya had recently survived a life-threatening illness and now needed special care. Arzu requested Merill to take special care of Roya, and Merill assured her that she would take care of the entire family like her own. But right after this promise, the situation gets weirder. Then we are taken to Lale's room, where she is lying on the bed and mumbling strange things. Yi kisi aurka kia wahai. Yi kisi aurka kia wahai. Her mumblings are terrifying, as if they are revealing some hidden truth. Then Roya enters the room, and as Lale catches sight of her, she suddenly looks at her and says, "Your father, Kamal, had already told me everything, but Kamal was not there. Or maybe he was never there." Lale's murmurings became more and more strange. She kept repeating that regretting what has been done was of no use. There was a strange uneasiness in her voice, as if she was trying to hide some terrible truth. Then suddenly, she looked at Roya and whispered, "You are not the same. Someone else has made you." Merill became a little uncomfortable hearing this, but she ignored it, thinking it was Lale's illness. As night falls, everyone gathers for dinner. Merill is feeding Lale, but then Lale's eyes fall on a painting hanging in a corner. Her eyes widen, as if she has seen something very old and scary. She says in a trembling voice, "Everything must happen at its appointed time, otherwise the consequences will be very bad. The price will be very heavy." Merill listens to him in panic, and then Lale whispers softly, "Kamal has changed my granddaughter. He has done something to her." Merill gets goosebumps on hearing this, and she immediately leaves from there. As soon as she goes out, Lale's voice echoes from behind. Kamal killed his daughter, and he himself does not know what he has done. These words keep echoing in the darkness, but nothing was clear yet. On the other hand, the story takes us to Arzu's elder daughter Sarah, who is not at all happy in this new house. She finds this place strange, as if something is not right here. Meanwhile, Arzu is talking to her husband Kamal on the phone. Kamal sounds tired and upset. He keeps saying that he is very disturbed. In fact, Kamal was earlier a doctor in a big city, in a reputed hospital, but something happened which gave him so much mental stress that he had to leave. He left his old life and came to this small town, where he started working in a small hospital. But was his trouble only because of work, or was he running away from something that came with him? Arzu angrily tells Kamal, "If this is what you had to do, you could have done it while staying in the city, then what was the need to come here?" Kamal gets irritated and angrily replies, "There was a lot of tension, just because, don't ask too much." But it was clear from his voice that some terrible truth was eating him up inside. On the other hand, Merill was in her room, and she still had the Zulmut seal, which should have been buried with the sacrifice. The question was, if it was buried, how come it is here? Suddenly the atmosphere of the room starts changing. The darkness deepens, and Merill hears strange sounds. Then she sees the evil spirits of her dead son, Sorcerer and Mehmed surround her. They start to grab her, pull her, but as soon as Merill regains consciousness, the room was empty again. On the other hand, Kamal sees a horrifying dream. He was standing in a dark room, where a blood ritual was taking place. Many strange shadows were standing around him with bowls full of blood. Kamal's eyes were shining, and he was shouting, "Drink this, everything will be fine." But for this ritual he needed Roya. As he moves to pick her up, the dream breaks. But was it just a dream, or a glimpse of reality? As Kamal goes to pick up his daughter, he finds her covered in blood, and her grandmother Lale standing nearby. Lale's voice was cold and terrifying. "Child, you shouldn't have done that." As a terrified Kamal picked up Roya in his arms, she suddenly transformed into Mehmed. Her breathing stopped in fear and then she woke up. This too was just a vision, but so real that her heart was still beating fast. That same night, Roya was sleeping with her sister Sarah, but suddenly she started hearing evil whispers. Terrified, she went to Sarah, but Sarah had never called her. Now Roya did not want to sleep there anymore. She had realized that something very wrong was happening. On the other hand, Ran was looking for a way to stop the havoc of this Zulmut, but then the evil of Zulmut himself came to threaten him. "Get out of the way, otherwise the consequences will be bad." But Ran smiled and said, "If you think that I cannot do anything to you, then why did you come to threaten me?" Seeing his courage, the evil backed off. Meanwhile, Kamal's restlessness was increasing. He was thinking how everything will be fine. When will this stop? No one was able to adjust in this house, and the atmosphere was becoming strange. Meanwhile, a new character appears, Kazım, a child trafficker who used to capture innocent children and make them beg and sell them for money. But was he also a part of this game of Zulmut? Kazım orders his man, "Keep an eye on Merill. She is going to do something crazy, and I will focus on Dr. Kamal." Meanwhile, a big secret is revealed. Merill was not able to bury Mehmed that night. That is, the ritual was incomplete, and this was the reason why the havoc of darkness continued till now. The most terrifying thing was that there was a deep, strange connection between Mehmed, Kamal and the ritual, which no one had been able to understand till now. Meanwhile, Kamal gifts 2 dolls to Roya at home, one named Roya and the other Mehmed. But when he saw that the clothes of the second doll were the same as those worn by Mehmed in the beginning, his soul trembled. Was this just a coincidence or the trick of a shadow? Kamal's confusion increased further when his wife started telling him about Merill's past. Merill's husband and son were brutally killed in a land dispute, but due to the influential connections of the murderer, he did not get any punishment. This was the reason why Merill chose a different, horrifying way to get justice: the Zulmat ritual. But the scariest thing was that the man who killed Merill's family killed his entire family and then killed himself. Was this just remorse, or the unfulfilled curse of Zulmat? Sarab was fast asleep, but she was repeatedly tormented by evil visions of Roya. "Sister, I'm scared, come to me." Every time she went towards her, Roya's face would change to a terrifying one. Sometimes she would look abnormally large. She was gasping for breath, and when her scream broke her sleep, the real Roya was near her, trembling, terrified. She was also a victim of the same horrifying things. Meanwhile, Merill was near Lale, but Lale had now gone completely evil. Her wide-open eyes stared at Merill and she whispered, "You didn't keep your promise, the price will be very high." Merill was terrified, but when she tried to compose herself, it was too late. In the dark of the night, even while she was asleep, the same horrifying visions began to surround her. Evil shadows, laughter, whispers. Suddenly, she hears the voice of her son Hassan. She runs out of the room after him, but this was no ordinary meeting, it was Hassan's ghost. There was a strange gleam in his vacant eyes, and he softly points at Mehmed. "Mom, you did not keep your promise, now it will be bad, very bad." Merill shivers to her very core. The next moment, she sees Kamal near his mother Lale. He says in a low, but cold voice, "Now I want your life, for Roya." "Okay. Yes, you take my life. Kill me. Kill Mehmed too." There was no fear in Lale's voice now, just a strange calmness. Kamal froze. "How do you know about Mehmed?" To this Lale just smiled. "He is right here, he told me." Kamal's face turned pale. Suddenly, he put a blood drain tube on Lale's face and started dragging her towards the stairs. In one go, he threw her down. But then she started gasping for breath, and she woke up. It was a terrible dream, but so real that her whole body was drenched in sweat. He panicked and went to check on his mother. She was sleeping peacefully. But as soon as he returned to his room, he heard a soft whisper, "Kamal, this was not a dream. I am leaving, save me." Frightened, he ran back and saw Lale was not in her room. He walked towards the stairs, and there she was, standing at the top, as if some invisible force suddenly. Lale threw himself down. The dream had come true. The next morning, Arzu spoke to Ruia. The children were only told that Lale was in the hospital, but Ruia had realized the truth. She was sad. "Earlier Lale loved me a lot. She was always with me, but ever since I fell ill, she distanced herself from me. She always said that Papa has changed me, made me something else." Kamal was now completely trapped in Kazım's trap. Kazım had clearly said that he would reveal the truth of whatever Kamal had done if he did not give him 2 million more. Kamal had given him money earlier too, but this was not going to end now. Kamal returned home surrounded by this tension, and he burst out his anger on Sarab, who was busy on the phone all day. Sarab became even more disappointed by the fact that no one in the house cared about her. Everyone revolved around Ruia. Meanwhile, Merill remembered the sorcerer lady's words, "If sacrifice is not properly punished, things will get worse." She remembered that when she went to bury Mehmed, Kazım came and took the child with him, as he was a money-making tool for him. Meanwhile, at Kazım's base, one of his goons is seen brutally beating a child because he brought less alms. But then the child suddenly began to change. His eyes turned pitch black, his breathing became heavy, and in a matter of moments, he had transformed into Mehmed's evil form. Before anyone could understand what was happening, he swiftly took out a sharp weapon and stabbed the goon. Blood was spilled everywhere, and the rest of Kazım's men retreated in horror. It was clear now, the wrath of cruelty had begun, and no one could escape it. Strange events begin to occur in Ruia's room, as the spirits of Lale and her entire family begin to haunt her. Lale tells her in a terrifying voice that, "I am dead, I am not in the hospital, and you will die soon too." Terrified by this horrific sight, Ruia screams loudly, prompting Arzu and Kamal to rush to her. Ruia tells her mother in tears that, "Grandma is dead, she came to tell me herself." meaning that she has now indirectly realized that her grandmother is no more in this world. It is then that we see Kamal, who is haunted by a terrible nightmare. In his dream, the evil Arzu and Sarab are standing in front of him, while Ruya and Mehmed are seated on the operation chair, and a blood transfusion is taking place between them. Kamal explains himself that, "I had no choice, what would I do? Which of the two children would I save?" But before anything else can happen, he wakes up. Now Kamal had realized that he should not lie anymore. He wakes up Arzu and decides to tell her the whole truth. He makes her sit on a chair and tells her in a trembling voice that, "I took blood from Mehmed to save Ruya, because his blood group was very rare and no donor was available on time. I was helpless, but," his voice becomes heavy. He further says that, "I took out more blood than needed, and that is why Mehmed died." Hearing this truth, Arzu's face shows disbelief and fear. Ruya is saved, but Mehmed is gone. Suddenly Ruya enters the room, and the next moment something horrifying happens. Now both of them, Ruya and Mehmed, transform into evil and start hunting Kamal. Kamal is terrified by this horrific experience and suddenly wakes up. He realizes that he never told Arzu the truth. She was sleeping on the bed, and he himself fell asleep sitting on the chair. Or it would be more correct to say that the darkness played a game with him, manipulating his mental state. He takes deep breaths, trying to understand what is happening to him. We now see Merill, who is very upset all this time. Suddenly her phone rings. It is from Kazım. Kazım directly asks, "What do you want to do?" Merill tries to avoid it at first, but Kazım knew that she had not come there as just a simple caretaker. Then a big revelation happens. In fact, Merill had paid Kazım to get complete information about Kamal and his family. She already knew all this and had come to this house for a specific purpose. Now the story goes into flashback, where the real secrets of this film start getting revealed, and the truth is about to be exposed. So that night Merill had failed to bury Mehmed, and that is when Kazım and his man took him away. Later, the same Mehmed somehow reached Kamal, who gave his daughter Ruya a blood transfusion to save her life. But in this process, Mehmed died, because more blood was taken than required. In fact, the disease that had surrounded Ruya, its treatment was possible only with Mehmed's blood, a special and rare blood group that he had. But there was another horrifying truth here. Mehmed was a marked sacrifice, meaning he had to be sacrificed in a certain way at any cost. Now that his body was gone, his demon-infected blood had gone inside Ruya, meaning Ruya was now the new sacrifice. And that is why Merill had come to this house, to complete this incomplete sacrifice. On the other hand, Kazım is shown going somewhere in his car. But then the children he had kept captive suddenly appear in front of him. They attack him by throwing stones, which injure his knee and head. He somehow tries to get into his car, groaning in pain, but then something else happens. Aval Mehmed appears in front of him. Now it was clear that something very terrible was written in Kazım's fate, and this dark night was not going to end well for him. Kazım's fate was also certain. Aval Mehmed gives him a scary, horrifying smile, which makes it clear that his end would also be death. After all, he too had come into this maze of sacrifice, and the darkness of darkness destroyed him too. On the other hand, inside the house, Kamal was completely shattered. His sin was weighing heavy on his soul, and he was trying to run away from the fear and regret rising inside him. He apologizes to his mother, but this guilt was not going to leave him now. Then, in a room he sees Arzu, Sarab, Ruya and Mehmed, who are watching his interview on the TV screen, in which he himself admits how he bought Mehmed and how he died. Seeing all this, it was clear that now his mental balance has started deteriorating, and he is slowly moving towards madness. Meanwhile, evil Ruya suddenly comes to Arzu and starts hunting her, which completely possesses Arzu. After this, she goes straight to Sarab and possesses him too, meaning that now Zulmat darkness had completely possessed both of them. Meanwhile, another horrifying thing happens. The amulet, which was made of bones of 7 different animals, suddenly becomes active. This was a sign that the time for sacrifice had come, and this sacrifice had to be completed at any cost. Arzu and Sarab, now completely possessed, go straight to Merill and say that Ruya has to be killed today, he has to be made an enemy. They immediately start their preparations, because now it was necessary to complete the sacrifice. But in the meantime, Ran enters. He knew that without stopping the evil, the blood of innocence would be shed, and he could not let this happen. He goes straight to the house where all this is happening. Evil tries hard to stop him from entering, but Ran is adamant. The darkness now challenges him to open the gate. He warns that if Ran takes this step, he will invite his death. But Ran goes ahead without fear and enters the house. As he goes inside, he finds Arju and Sarah, but they are no longer humans, but possessed spirits. Ran tries to talk to them and asks their real names, as he knew that knowing his real name was necessary to banish evil. At first, they make fun of him, but finally they tell him their name, Afra. That is, it was either their real name or the name of their clan. Suddenly, Ran grabs both of them by the throat and goes into their world, the real world of evil. There, Afra Jinns and Zulm Darkness tell him that Ruia is a sacrifice, marked by a cursed sorcerer. Now the question was, would Ran be able to stop the evil, or was Ruia's end certain? Evil also says here that he is not wrong, but those people are wrong who sacrifice someone else to save their child, like Mehmed is being talked about. Here another thing is told that a woman who kills an entire family to take her revenge. Another thing is told that those people are wrong, like Kazım. That is, people like Kazım who imprison children here and make them beg, but Ran had not come here to listen to his nonsense because the girl here, Ruia, was completely innocent, but evil says that she is marked and she has been given to them as an officer and they will take her at any cost. Then the cursed sorcerer starts doing this cruel ritual at her place, but Ran catches her throat. Indirectly he goes into her world and chokes her too and stops her so that she cannot complete her work. Evil tries his best here to do this somehow. By doing this Ran loses, but by strengthening his prayers Ran weakens them and takes out a very strong amulet here, due to which he banishes them inside the dirtiest part of season, i.e. hell. Now the evil had gone from here, so Sharap and Arzu here had become completely normal, and then we noticed that Merill was making Ruia play a very dangerous game, and obviously she is a child so she agrees to play the game. Merill covers Ruia's face with a mask and also ties her hands and legs and puts her in that pit and says that she will have to stay there for some time, and that poor child also agrees to it. And then we notice that Merill's son Hassan's spirit appears to her and says that everything is fine and she does not need to do all this now, so she does not kill Ruia now, and tells her that she played a very good game, and she will always love him. After which we see Kamal, who had gone completely mad and was still being haunted by Lale's spirit. But then his daughter Ruia comes there and says that she is absolutely fine, and Papa, you will also be fine, you do not need to do all this.